Ah, Minecraft. The beautiful game about surviving in the wilds, hunting or farming for food, mining for resources, and of course, building a base. But what if you added another game into the mix? This is Pokémon, the mod where Minecraft meets Pokemon. And look at them, they're beautiful! Since Pokémon came out, I've always been a kind of skeptic about it, as I like Pixelmon a lot more. But my friends and I decided to give Pokémon a chance, and spoiler, man, I was wrong about Pokémon. Just like my other 100 days video, there are some goals, and this time I've decided to have my own. Collect the first 151 Pokemon, including the legendaries, Mega Evolve one of my Pokemon, have a base that is not that nasty on the ice. I'm not the best builder, but we'll see what we do. Obtain my favorite Pokemon, Mawile, but as a shiny. And lastly, defeat all my friends in a Pokemon battle at the end of the 100 days. Now, my friends don't know that I'll be hosting a little tournament on day 100, but that doesn't mean I can just sit back and don't have to worry about making a strong team. But for now, let's see if I can become a true Pokemon master in my journey of 100 days in Cobblemon. Day 0 started off with Ryan immediately noticing that PvP was still on and had a fist fight with Dan. After calming them down, it was time to pick our starters. And this had to be Trico, of course. He's my favorite starter Pokemon, and even though we could have started with a Gen 1 starter for free, I just love Trico too much. I then went on to explain how Cobblemon worked to my friends, and everyone picked their starters. Spoon got a Charmander, Ryan takes a Torchic, and Dan chose a Hisuian Oshawott. Yeah, I know it's a bit confusing, but in Cobblemon, the Hisuian starters have an entire evolution line. After choosing our starters, I nickname my Trico Jerry before I find some Oranberries. We then arrive at a village where we actually are able to make some food with the hay bales. Here we also have the first battle of the series, as we fight a Yungoos. Dan slept through the first night as he was trying to protect us from the vanilla mobs, since we still have to worry about those.
I was protecting my friends.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I died during the day, so...
I can't protect stupidity.
After that, it's time to start with the Minecraft basics, but as I'm chopping down a tree... Oh!
Killed him!
Spoon Puncher the Growlithe!
I killed the Growlithe!
With the wood we collected, we could start mining, because we want Pokeballs, of course. Which, in this mod, we need copper for. So weirdly enough, copper is going to be pretty useful to us.
Bro, I am so upset right now.
You don't sound that upset.
I've got a shiny to spawn on me.
Oh yeah, shinies are a thing in this mod. And it does really suck for Ryan that he found at the beginning of the 100 days, since we don't have any Pokeballs. I craft myself some iron tools before continuing my mining trip, and I find myself a rusted shield, our first legendary item. Sadly, Zamazente isn't implemented yet, but it's still cool to have it either way. I continued mining, which ended up with me finding an Anisrite Geode. In there, I find a Mega Stone, which I accidentally destroyed since I didn't have a diamond pickaxe. With that blunder, I decided to go back to the surface and find my first apricorn tree. With the apricorns it produces, I can actually make myself a couple of Pokeballs, since I was able to get some copper in the mine. I then catch myself my first Pokemon, which is a Fletchling. And yeah, I know it isn't a Gen 1 Pokemon, but I'm not limited to only using Gen 1 Pokemon. All I have to do is catch all 151 of them. I return towards the village where we started, since we decided to live there and build a little base. Before I get back though, I find this Psyduck who I attempt to catch, but he completely wipes my team. When I arrive in the village, I see Spoon make his home, and you won't notice, but every time we used to play Pixelmon, Spoon would make this exact same home, or how me and Ryan used to call it, his little shed. After having a conversation with Spoon, I look for a place where I can start building my home. As the sun rises, I figure out that unlike Pixelmon, your Pokemon actually revive over time. This is super handy since we don't have a healer yet. Since we're not in peaceful mode, we also need food. And what better way to get food than farming? I make myself a little potato farm, which I leave to grow as Dan shows me his drip. I go on to collect some more wood to build my home, and actually get a couple apples. As I eat these apples, I get an item called Leftovers, which I can give to any of my Pokemon, and they'll restore a little bit of health while they're in battle. After giving Jerry the leftovers, I return to my farm, where I continue to build my home. As I'm building my home, we actually get a visit of a legendary Pokemon.
Uh,
What?
No, I'm in a
Small
fight.
Smog has spawned! Ryan then attempts to catch it, which he fails of course, since well, it's a legendary Pokemon, and we only have normal Pokeballs. I decide to go on a little trip to look for some apricorn sprouts, which I can use to make my own apricorn trees. On day 5, I decide to go back to the mines, since I need some more resources. And to be honest, it was a pretty chill mining session until this happened. No! No! I was so cool! I was so devastated that I went back to get that diamond, and as I did, my friends made this joke which continued the entire 100 days.
I can't count.
I'm illiterate.
You litter?
No, I can't. That's why I said I'm illiterate.
Oh yeah, you can't litter. Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I went through this earlier, man. Come on.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm Braille.
Nice to meet you, bro.
And saying this joke got overused would be an understatement. I then found another NSI geode, and this time I did have a diamond pickaxe. I went on to mine the evolution stones inside of it, as Dan told us something.
Man's experience.
God, I love
annoying
playing with my
crazy.
friends. Ash, Spoon.
I then found myself a Ghastly, which I managed to catch, and this was our first Kanto Pokemon. This means that we've officially started the 151 challenge. I also got a Joltik, who apparently could sit on my shoulder. This is so cool. I then went back to the surface to continue on my base. I collected some more wood before continuing on my base, and I also added some cherry planks to the floor, which Ryan had given me. After finishing the floor of my home, I went on to collect some sand to make some windows. But not just that, I also made myself a PC, and unlike the PC you probably have at home, this PC is used to swap out your Pokemon in your party. Since we can only hold 6 Pokemon in our party, this PC will be pretty helpful later. Dan then gave me a couple Amethyst shards, which I could use to make an EXP share. This item will share some of the EXP dropped by the defeated or caught Pokemon with the Pokemon that's holding the item. I then finished my home and went on to explore the nearby forest. Here I caught myself a Caterpie before evolving Fletchling into Fletchinder. I also caught a Linoon, which I was hoping to have the ability to pick up. He sadly didn't, but I was able to evolve Jerry into a Grovyle. Oh, and the Caterpie I caught was also ready to evolve. I evolved him into Metapod and then straight into Butterfree. I used the apricorn sprouts I collected to make a small farm behind my home, and as I was waiting for him to grow, I went on to sort my chests. I once again go back to mining as I'm still looking for a lush cave. There's a specific herb that grows there which we need to craft a healer. While I'm mining, I find myself a fossil dig site, which I didn't know at the time. Later on, I'll be slightly annoyed that I didn't write the quartz down since we will be needing fossils. After returning from the mines, I can actually make myself another 5 EXP shares. And with that, the entire party will be decked out with EXP shares and will all gain XP from battles. Spoon made a rule for himself to only use Gen 1 Pokemon, which he broke quite early as he found himself a Turtwig. He then saw my Joltik on my shoulder and remembered that I told him he could put Turtwig on his back.
You could have fought Joltik. Oh my god. wait. Did you say that by any...
And you know what the best part is, Spoon? You can keep him on your shoulder even if you battle with other Pokemon.
This is the best thing I have seen in my life.
Right? I went on a little expedition to find some more Kanto Pokemon, but instead I got distracted by a shiny Drillbur. I caught him, and it turns out he can also go on my shoulder. Daytime was here, and that means that we are 10% into our journey of Cobblemon. And I know it might look bad since we only have 4 out of all the 151 Pokemon, but the first couple days are always about getting ready and setting up. So with that, I say we catch some more Pokemon. Just like Spoon, I catch myself a Turtwig, who actually has a pretty cool feature, but we'll show this later on in the video. I continue to also catch myself a Tangela, a Meowth, and even a Coughing. Ryan then managed to find a Lush Cave, but not just that, he also got a Revival Herb. This is the herb we need to craft ourselves a healer. I then caught myself a Pidgey and a Growlithe before I started singing to my music. Somehow the world got changed for me, and it feels so wonderful.
You listen to that 5 times a day, don't you?
Actually, Spoon, I'm gonna tell you that it's literally just chance. Because I always,
I
anytime...
caught a pigeon! Yeah, sorry.
After that conversation, I caught myself a Drowsy, and Ryan returned to the village. He then handed me a Revival Herb, which I then used to craft yourself a healer. With the healer, we no longer had to wait for Pokemon to revive by themselves. We could now just right-click the machine, and they'd be healed instantly. I then asked Spoon if he had some leather for us, and he did, and then I crafted us both backpacks. And these backpacks, oh my god, these backpacks are so annoying. You'll see why in a bit later, but I hate these backpacks with a passion. The next day was pretty chill. I evolved the Turtwig into Groudon and managed to catch quite some Pokemon. I caught a Mr. Mime, a Magikarp, a Psyduck, an Eevee, and lastly, an Oddish. I continued exploring and caught myself a Doduo, a Shinx, a Bellsprout, and another Caterpie. I then swapped my party around and made a couple changes to the moves they had. I evolved my Ghastly into Haunter, my Magikarp into a Gyarados, and my Shinx into a Luxio. Not shortly after I died, and this is where my hate for the backpack comes into play. We're playing with Keep Inventory on, since this gives a way chiller experience while playing a Pokemon game. However, when you die with the backpack, it still drops when you die. When I respawned, I placed down my GameCube as a coping mechanism, before Ryan came by and helped me evolve my Haunter into Gengar. Spoon then offers me a ride on his Pidgeot to bring me to the jungle where I lost my backpack. On our way there, we find a Pokemon town where we steal all the loot they have before continuing our journey. When we get there, I waste no time to find my backpack and catch a Mankey and a Heracross. For some reason, I thought he was Gen 1, I don't know why. As I continue to explore on my own, I find a store that sells EXP candy. This will be handy later, as we will need to level up our Pokemon. I continue exploring into the desert as I find a giant structure. Before I go and explore the structure though, I catch myself a Sandshrew, and I kill a shiny Trapinch. On day 15, I catch myself a Gimmighoul, and finally start to explore the structure. There were some parkour jumps here and there, but it wasn't that difficult. Uh-oh. Alright, I may have missed a jump and died again. And yes, That means I lost the infamous backpack again. I then just decided it was time to level up my Fletchinder instead, since I wanted a flying Pokemon myself. As I was doing this, I saw Spoon get killed by a Stonjourner before evolving Luxio into Luxray. I'm finally able to evolve Fletchinder to Talonflame, but I then figure out that I can't fly on him. I then trade Spoon my Mankey so I can use his Pidgeot, and with this we can finally fly. I waste no time and start traveling back to where I lost my backpack. On the way there I find some EXP candies which I give to Jerry. These were enough to evolve him into a Sceptile. At the end of the day, I finally reach the structure and get my backpack back. As the sun rose, I climbed up to the top to see something my eyes couldn't believe. This was no ordinary structure. This was a sacred place. This was Sky Pillar. As I reached the top, I stood face to face with a legendary Pokemon, Rayquaza. He killed me! He killed me!
You found a Rayquaza.
Oh, wow. That gamble really paid off, Ash.
Oh, damn. Looks like you're going to need to go and get your backpack again.
Yeah, the entire journey for my backpack, we have to do it again. But with a newfound goal this time. The goal to catch Rayquaza. Spoon wanted to see Sky Pillar, so I took him with me, and we flew all the way to Sky Pillar. And then he jumped off.
No, Spoon. I'm not. You didn't even give me the quick ball yet. Can you come back?
I reach Rayquaza and I feel the gravity of this situation. If I don't catch him with these Pokeballs, or if he kills me one more time, Spoon will be able to fly over here and catch him before I can. I then decide to just throw Pokeballs at him until he stays in the ball. And with my second to last Ultra Ball, he did. Now, I know Rayquaza isn't a Gen 1 legendary, but it's a beast of a Pokemon and one of my favorite legendaries. I returned to my home with the backpack and emptied it out in the chests. But it didn't take long for the server to crash. I had to fix this issue, which I did at the end of the day. However, all I could do by then was sort my chest a bit. We then made some changes to the site mods, as we added a different backpack mod, which would actually stay in our inventory when we died. We also got a different Pokemon mount mod, with which we could actually ride every single Pokemon. I then make myself a new backpack and teach Ryan how to convert his raw Mega Stone into a usable Mega Stone. For you guys at home, you just do this by putting it into a stone cutter. Ryan then tells me that if I help with the resources for a backpack, he'll give me a Mewtwo Y. Knowing that I need Mewtwo for the Dex, and I need to Mega Evolve a Pokemon for my goal, this was too good of an opportunity to let go. I go outside and get some string for the backpack, as I catch an Abra on the way. I craft Ryan a backpack and trade it for a Mewtwo Y. Day 20 wasn't that special for me, as I was just looking through the config files to make some changes to the mounts, which didn't really affect them at all, so I basically wasted the entire day. But at least Dan showed me this cool mushroom Miltank. I harvested my farm and then evolved Abra into Kadabra. Spoon then came around and helped me to evolve him into Alakazam. I caught myself an Elekid, which I planned to evolve into Electabuzz, and later on we had this conversation about Endive, which in the Netherlands we call Witlof.
Weet je wat ik echt gehoord vind? Witlof.
Oh, godverdomme.
Holy shit, spuug het echt uit, hè? Maakt me niet uit of je chefkok bent.
English only on my stream, you peasant.
I then watched Dan attempt to catch an Elekid, but I told him I have one, and I traded it for a Mankey. I then craft an upgrade for my backpack, which allows me to put food in the backpack and it'll eat it for me. Yeah, bit of a lazy upgrade, but it's such a nice thing to have. I then go out to catch more Pokemon like a Weedle, another Magikarp, a shiny Wooloo, and an Execute. As I'm walking through the jungle, I see this zombie who's trying to have a Pokemon duel with me, but before I can even accept his challenge, Gengar murdered him in cold blood. When I return home, I hear dancing Sonic music.
Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. Hey.
I catch myself a Rapidash before I shift my party around. On day 25, I thought it was a smart idea to move the apricot farm inside of my home. This would protect me from the mobs when I need to harvest them. I started digging out a basement where I could put some of the apricot sprouts. I then went on to collect some wood, as I needed those for the walls in the farm. Now that we're 25% done with the journey, I'd like to say some quick words about the non-sponsor of this video, my merch store. If you want to support me, I ask of you just to subscribe and nothing more. But for those who want to get a comfy hoodie, the option is there. But now, let's continue, shall we? I take a break from making the basement as I run out of resources. While collecting some more, I also get some apricorn leaves, as this is the only type of leaves that apricorns can grow on. After finishing the basement, I plant the berries sorted by color, so I can easily grab the color I need for the specific Pokeball that I want to craft. I catch myself a Drifloon before putting the final touches on my apricorn farm. Ryan and Dan both love exploring, and they have been doing this for a while now. The crazy thing is that Dan managed to find Ryan while they were pretty far away.
What the fuck? Wait. Ryan! Oh my god, I found you!
What?
Stay still. I'm coming, baby.
What?
I found you!
Bro, we're 17,000 blocks away from home.
And then once again go back to the cave to do some mining, and I find 2 fossil dig sites. And yet again, I don't know what they are, and I don't write down the coords. After mining for a while, I find an Amethyst Geode, and a Geodude which I managed to catch. I attempted to catch myself a Diglett in the Zubat, but before I could, I got dive bombed by a creeper. I then went into my basement to harvest my apricorns. From now on, I'll be showing this less, as I do this basically every time I return to my home. I then went on to evolve a couple of Pokemon. First was Weedle into Kakuna, who immediately evolved into Beedrill as well, followed by Oddish into Gloom, and finally Geodude into Graveler. Ryan helps me evolve Graveler into Golem, and then proceeds to blow up my home. What is it with my friends and blowing creepers up near my home? Spoon has been getting very upset with the hostile vanilla mobs, and has been farming as a coping mechanism. Then trades me a Machop, and I ask him to do a friendly battle. This way I could get some quick EXP to evolve my Machop into Machoke. On day 30 he then helped me evolve him into Machamp, before I started working on filling the explosions my friends had caused near my home. After that was finished, I went on to look for some more Gen 1 Pokemon, but I could only find a shiny Zigzagoon. After I caught it, I went back home, and I helped Spoon evolve his Graveler. I evolved Drowsy into Hypno, and made the stupid decision that we'll be doing a Living Dex instead. But that's our goal now, on one of each Gen 1 Pokemon at the same time. I sorted out my PC so I could easily keep track of the Pokemon that I caught up to this point, before I went on to catch myself a Raticate, and a Wigglytuff. I then returned home and noticed that there was another creeper explosion near my house. This is honestly getting quite ridiculous. I craft myself some quick balls, since these are actually kind of broken, since they have a 5x catch rate, unlike an Ultra Ball, which only has a 2x catch rate. Spoon then tells me to watch the animation of a fainted Drifloon, which honestly is pretty funny. I caught myself a Slowpoke, before Dan traded me a Ditto. I then went on to catch more Pokemon like a Krabby, a Slowbro, a Pichu, another Krabby, a Seaking, and a Tauros. And no, I did not catch 30 like Ash in the anime, maybe another time. I caught myself a Zora before I evolved Grabby into Kingler, and Growlithe into Arcanine. I then continued to catch more Pokemon like a Goldeen, a Psyduck, an Eevee, and last but not least, a shiny Sentret. I then returned to my home to trade Zora for Jolteon, before I evolved my Eevee into a Vaporeon. Our streak wasn't over, as I caught myself a Grimer before making my way to the jungle. Here I can get a lot of Kanto Pokemon, including one of the starters, Bulbasaur. After arriving in the jungle, Spoon and Ryan both really had enough of the hostile vanilla mobs, so we made the choice to go back to peaceful mode. As I'm trying to catch a Weeping Bell, we make a bet to figure out who can stop swearing the longest, which I almost instantly lose.
I would love to make a bet with you guys to see who could like go the longest without swearing.
I will win this.
From now on.
From now on, okay.
From now
Well,
on.
I was gonna say, I like how everyone's just instantly silent.
It's easier just not to talk.
No
at this
one wants
point.
to fucking, no one. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. Having failed within a minute, I just decided to continue with catching Pokemon in the jungle, starting off with a Primeape, a Scyther, another Weeping Bell, and 2 Paras. On day 35, I give up on the Bulbasaur hunt for now, since there's still so much else we can do. First, I evolve my Grimer into Muk. I then catch 2 more shinies back to back, a Shroomish and a Metapod. I also catch a Ralts before returning home, where Dan is able to give me a Firestone, which helps me evolve Eevee into Flareon. He then trades me a Sandshrew and a Staryu, and hands me a Waterstone for me to evolve Staryu into Starmie. I grab myself some more Pokeballs before I catch myself a Drowsy and a Pidgeotto. The following day was marked with a new session, and I forgot to nail my recording software, so here's a recreation of me catching a Happiny. By the time I turned my recording on, it was already nighttime, but I still was able to catch myself a shiny Chespin and a Coughing. Dan gave me a King's Rock before I went on to catch quite a lot of Kanto Pokemon. I started off with a Lickitung, a Shelder, a Grimer, 2 Geodudes, a Shelder, and a Staryu. I then also evolved one of the Geodudes into Graveler. The next day I continued catching more Pokemon, starting off with Lapras, then a shiny Magikarp, and a Cloyster. I then also evolved my Ralts into Kirlia, and as I did this, Spoon had a question about Apom.
Would Apon be able to go on my shoulder? So let's give it a go. He's really cool.
I don't know. He is a monkey.
What's that supposed to mean?
He's a monkey. Monkeys jump on people's fucking shoulders, or they beat up children and get shot.
Do they?
Rip Harambe.
Ripperumbe! After that conversation, I went on quite a big spree as I caught myself a Kakuna, a Sparrow, and a Rhyhorn. I then evolved Sparrow into Pharaoh before catching another Sparrow. I caught an Oddish, a Rattata, another Rhyhorn, and I then caught a pair of Ekans. I evolved one of the Ekans into Arbok before continuing to catch myself a Nidoran female, a Doduo, a Nigglybuff, and 2 Ghastlies. Day 40 was here and Dan placed the gifts in everyone's home, but mine got stolen by Ryan, who eventually did give it back. I evolved Nidoran female into Nidorina, and then evolved her into Nidoqueen immediately after. Ryan then showed me his Clear Bell.
It's a clear bell. I can get Luigi.
Yo, that's Ho-Oh.
Oh, fuck off, I don't like him.
I gave Spoon a Shelter and then evolved my shiny Magikarp. With the diamonds I got as a gift from Dan, I was able to make myself a Keystone, which I could turn into a Mega Bracelet. This brings us closer to Mega evolving one of our Pokemon. I then catch 2 Zubats, so I evolved one of them into Golbat. Dan then wants to play a game of I Spy, and I'll just show you how that went.
I spy with my
no.
little eye something beginning with G.
Pikachu. Oh, shit.
Is
Is it guys?
no, but you're so fucking close.
Girls?
No! We've been using it a lot.
Grommel?
When the fuck have we used Grommel? G! G, guys! G!
Jesus.
No! That's a J! Stream started! First words! Ha ha ha! Funny!
Gay.
Yes! Holy shit!
Why? Wait, which one of us were you looking at?
I was staring at you! And my bit was gonna be, ha ha! I see a gay! Ha ha ha!
Yeah, we weren't even close at all. I could see why Dan got so mad. I did manage to catch myself a Persian and a Voltorb, and Ryan found the end portal. I caught myself an Evolog and 2 Seals, before Ryan asked me to turn the mob spec on. This way you could grind the item for the end portal without having to kill all our Pokemon. Now the difficulty was turned up again, I found myself an Evoker, which I managed to kill and get a Totem of Undying from. I then went on continuing to catch more Pokemon, and I caught a Weezing, before evolving my Doduo into Threo, and my Psyduck into Golduck. When I came back from being AFK, I saw that a shiny Snorunt spawned near me, and I caught it before I got killed by Weirdeer. I then met up with Ryan and Dan as we were going to the end. Ryan then showed me one of the Pels from Pel World, as we were waiting for Spoon to go to the end. As we arrive at the end portal, I place a bet down so we can set our spawn here, before punching each other into the lava. After joking around for a bit, it's time to get serious and go to the end. We then had an epic battle with the Ender Dragon before defeating it. As we did, a Guzzlord spawned, and we all took turns catching it. Ryan then was the lucky one who managed to catch him. We then went on to explore some end cities, where I found myself a spawn item for Ho-Oh and for Zacian. I got myself an Elytra and 3 Shulker boxes, before heading back to the overworld. Back home, I prank down with some Crystal Binding Boots, and after I do, I catch a Voltorb, which I immediately evolve into Electrode. Dan then finds out how we enable Pokemon icons on our minimap, which will help out a lot. I catch myself another Eevee, I evolve Gloom into Vileplume, before doing a quick mining session. On day 45, I make myself a brush, since I will be needing this to do some archaeology. We need to do some archaeology, since this will be the only way to get fossils. We then all said bye to Ryan, as he will be spending some time with his girlfriend. I give Dan all my Gimmighoul coins, so he can evolve his Gimmighoul into Golden Go. I catch myself a Magmar, before crafting a data monitor. This is one of the 3 machines we'll be needing to revive the fossils into Pokemon. I catch another Eevee, and then do some archaeology in a dig site. I didn't know you needed a specific dig site at this point, so I finished here without a single fossil. I did however catch myself 2 Pichus and a Vulpix. I caught another Vulpix before thinking about evolving my baby Pokemon. Baby Pokemon evolve by friendship, which is obtained by walking with them outside of their Pokeball. I needed some Sooth Bells to make this go quicker, so I went on and borrowed some wool from Ryan to craft some. After crafting the Sooth Bells, I went on to craft myself a new look, and look at my armor. It looks fabulous. I then went on to evolve Seal into Dugong, and Paras into Parasect. I then traded Spoon and Eevee to get some Firestones, which turned out to not be his. Even though they weren't his, I still used it to evolve Vulpix into Ninetales. I made 2 more Sooth Bells, and evolved my Elekid into Electabuzz. I crafted a pasture block, which meant we could start breeding. Well, that should have been the case, but there's a problem with our mod. I'll explain this later when I get breeding working. I catch myself a Jigglypuff. As I'm doing this, Dan also finds himself Skypillar. I caught a Ponyta, and we then had this conversation about Mega Pokemon.
Yeah, I want a Mega Shuckle, and if Pokemon don't give it to me, I'm going to cry.
Well, go cry, Bo.
And I will respect that decision.
Do you not think Mega Shuckle?
I think
Pretty cool.
Mega Shuckle will
Yes,
go hard.
Mega Shuckle would be, you know what would go cool? Mega Professor Oak.
Mega Professor Oak. I fucked your mum twice, Ash.
I caught myself a Torkoal, since I wanted to show my friends this cool smoke animation it played while in battle. Jerry was finally able to learn the move False Swipe. This move allows you to hit a Pokemon without killing it, which is great for catching Pokemons. Dan then found another Skypillar, which he sent the cords off to Spoon, before catching me a Mawile. I continue exploring and find myself Lavender Town, where I catch this Cubone and another Rattata. While I was battling a Fungus, a mythical Pokemon spawned, and reading the name, none of us knew that this Pokemon even existed. I then proceeded to try and catch it, but I accidentally killed it. Day 50. Here we are. We're halfway through the journey, and we still haven't finished a single goal. We're gonna have to speed up a little if you want to complete all of them. But if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now without further ado, let's get back to becoming a Pokemon master. I catch 2 more Nidoran females and a Hishui and Growlithe. I then found this tree, which is actually a fossil dig site. If only I knew this at this point. By the time I got home, Dan was there to give me a Nidorino, a Venonat, and a Mawile. Spoon then caught himself a Rayquaza, and Dan also gave me a Razorfang.
This from a dead Mawile.
Too soon, Dan. Too soon. I evolved my Nidoran female into a Nidorino, and then put a lot of Pokemon in the breeder, not knowing it didn't work yet. I gave Dan a Dawnstone so he could evolve the shiny Snorunt I traded him. I then evolved my Rhyhorn into Rhydon, and caught myself a Diglett. Not long after that, Spoon woke up who had fallen asleep behind his PC, and to be fair, it was quite a late session, so we ended it for the day, and decided to continue the next day. As we launched the game the next day, we were all quite awake, and I went on to explore a bit. I found myself another vanilla dig site, where I again go to look for fossils. If only I had looked up where fossils were, because there was no chance of me finding one there. We had some troubles with Discord, but nothing major, and I catch myself a Diglett and a shiny Petrat. I find another Pokemon town, which turned out to be Pallet Town, and I see Professor Oak, who looks a lot different than I remember. I then go on to steal everything he owns before continuing my exploration. As I'm exploring, I fall into a cave and decide this is a good time to go mining. As I'm doing so, I find myself an Onyx, who spawned in the lava.
I guess I'll set it up, but...
Do that. Do that.
No! 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 No!
Yes. Yes. Yes.
No.
No!
What'd you do?
There was an Onyx, but he spawned in the lava, so he died instantly.
How did he die?
In the lava.
I continue mining a little bit the next day, but I decide to just continue exploring instead. I catch myself a Venonat and a Poliwhirl. I also find myself a power plant, where I stick around to hope a Zapdos would spawn, just like the Rayquaza did. After waiting the entire day, there was sadly no Zapdos that spawned, so I continue with my journey. Oh, and these netherite blocks here? Yeah, we can't get them. I tried. The 55 started off with me catching 2 Poliwags, before making my way back home. When I get home, I check on my Pokemon who are breeding, but there's sadly no change. We'll get back to the breeding as soon as I get it to work. For now, let's make some gifts for Spoon and Dan. These gifts will include a Mega Bracelet for both. By the time I finish making these presents, it's already the next day. I fly over to Dan to deliver him his present, and take the box back with me. I mess around with the breeder for a little bit before terraforming my base. As I finish with terraforming my base, I decide it's time to fill in the creeper holes that my friends have made before catching a shiny Loftisc. I have quite a nice amount of evolution stones, but I lack moonstones. Luckily Spoon is farming these and I could join him. While I'm farming for moonstones with Spoon, I find myself a Cleffa. The next day was spent by just farming for the moonstones, but I also find myself an Onyx and a Clefairy. After a long grind for moonstones, it's finally time to go home. As I arrive home, Dan finds his first shiny and turns into Tengen from Demon Slayer.
I see it! I see it! Oh my god! Come here! Get in the fucking ball!
Now that we got some moonstones, we can evolve more Pokemon, so I decide to go on an evolving spree. I evolve Nidorino into Nidoking, Clefairy into Clefable, Poliwag into Poliwhirl, and Diglett into Dugtrio. I then give Spoon his present to end the day. Day 60 marked the return of Ryan. We all said hi to him as I whipped a Nene on everyone. I walked around a lot with my Pichus and my Munchlax, hoping to gain some friendship to evolve them. As I'm doing this, I find myself a Kadabra, which I managed to catch. I went on to explore again, as we still need a lot of Kanto Pokemon. As I was traveling, my Pichu finally evolved into Pikachu, and I was able to catch myself a Nidoran Male. I then caught another Nidoran Male, which I evolved into Nidorino. I then catch myself 2 Horsies, and a Finizen. Finizen? I don't know. I then decided it was time to catch myself a Bulbasaur. I went to the jungle so I could burn it down to get more spawns for Bulbasaur. As I started burning it down though, it immediately started to rain. This meant I had to wait with burning down the forest, so instead I walked around and evolved my Pichu into Pikachu. I then went on to catch myself 2 Magnemite. As the rain cleared up the next day, we had a second chance to burn down the jungle. As I'm doing this, Dan tells us about his favorite Pokemon, Snom.
I will literally break someone's legs for a Snom. I would do way worse things for a Snom.
I was gonna say you wouldn't. That's not the worst thing you would do.
No.
I really like Snom.
That's just like baseline. Yes.
Do I dare say?
It's a little gummy bear thing. Why would you not like it?
Bear thing.
Day 65 started off amazing. I actually managed to get a Bulbasaur to spawn on me, but there was a slight problem.
Ragnar just said a question. If you can kill one person, who would you kill?
No fucking way!
Well, I think Ash don't want to answer it.
Well, to explain what happened, as I false swiped him, he decided to use the move Takedown. This move has recoil damage, and he killed himself with that. I spent the next day trying to get another Bulbasaur to spawn, but while I couldn't get that to happen, Ryan was able to find in Team Rocket headquarters, which did not only have Venusaur, but also Charizard, Blastoise, and the legendary Pokemon Mewtwo. This of course is slightly demotivating, but I wasn't gonna let that stop me from getting a Bulbasaur. Alright, so I gave up trying to get a Bulbasaur. I did however catch myself a shiny Ghastly, who I evolved into Haunter. I also evolved Horsey into Seadra, and as I went home, I evolved my Pikachu into Raichu. Ryan then found a spawn item from Mew, which Dan was looking for the last couple of days. What is up with this guy's luck? Spoon helped me evolve my Haunter into Gengar, I caught myself a Ponyta, while Ryan caught himself a Mew. When I returned home, I was put into a hole of shame. Ryan had managed to find himself an add-on, which would add the Pokemon Snom into the game.
If you're meant to look at that.
Yo, Snom.
Oh, god damn.
Dan. Right, I found a pack that adds him.
Uh-huh.
Dan, do your thing.
Nah,
So-
listen.
So,
Now listen.
this whole time, I haven't been able to play with a Snom because you didn't have to get back.
Listen.
After Ryan sent me the files, I added them to the game, and I caught myself an Exu. I caught myself a Weedle, before I chose to go back on the Bulbasaur grind. It was at this point that I figured out that I could go across the water to try and spawn a Squirtle at the same time as I'm hunting for Bulbasaur. Even though I was trying this, the only thing I was able to catch was a shiny Sawsbuck. Ryan then decided to go to the end to explore, as he was trying to look for a member card. With this item, he could spawn his favorite Pokemon, Darkrai. Day 70 was here, and I found myself a Snorlax, which I managed to catch. I decided to keep my Munchlax on my team, so I could evolve it and give it a spoon. Right after that, an Ivysaur spawns, which I don't even dare to attack. But I do capture it, and once I did, I was reminded of my Grottle. Remember that I said I was going to be able to do something cool with him? Well, here is a Cherry Torterra. I think this feature is amazing. Being able to give your Grottle a specific sapling and evolving them into that type of Torterra is just such a cool thing to have. The following day wasn't that eventful, as I was just looking for a Squirtle. But I did manage to catch myself a Pinsir and a Minior. Oh, and I evolved my Venonat into Venomoth. I then continued to look for a Squirtle, but only found a shiny Psyduck. I was able to evolve my Munchlax into a Snorlax, which I then gave to Spoon as soon as I returned home. Before I could do that, Dan showed me his army. As we're almost 3/4 of the way there, I decided it was time to go look for some evolution stones, as I needed 3 Ice Stones, 3 Thunder Stones, and 3 Fire Stones. These would allow me to spawn the legendary birds, with a corresponding legendary item of course. I managed to find some Ice Stones quite early, before finding another Anisirite Geode. And this Geode actually had another Mega Stone in it. I went back home to turn the raw Mega Stone into a Charizardite Y. The worst one of the two, but still a Mega Stone. I then Mega Evolved Spoon's Charizard, as I was boring him to breed, which by the way, still wasn't working. I didn't really count this to finishing my goal, as the Pokemon I Mega Evolved wasn't really mine. I then grabbed my Clear Bell, as I was ready to spawn the legendary birds. But for some reason, I couldn't get Articuno to spawn, which confused me quite a bit. I went back home the next day to try and get a Zapdos instead, when I figured out that I had the wrong bell, as a Raikou had spawned. It turns out I had the Ho-Oh's bell instead of Lugia's bell. I also made a small revolution with this, as I accidentally spammed the item and had an infinite amount of Raikou spawn. Yeah, it's kinda broken if you think about it. Luckily for me, Ryan had found the correct bell in the end. I just had to wait for him to return to the overworld. So in the meantime, as I waited for Ryan to return, Dan showed me his blue orb, which allowed me to spawn a Kyogre, which I caught of course. On day 75, Ryan returned home and handed me his Tidal Bell. I then immediately went on to catch myself an Articuno, a Zapdos, and a Moltres. And if you're still watching, it means that you're probably enjoying the video. I have another 100 days video where I try to keep my friend Spoon alive in Minecraft Hardcore. You can check that one out if you want with a link in the description, but let's continue on, shall we? I then returned to the village where I gave Ryan his Tidal Bell back. Spoon also returned to the village with something to counter Dan's army. He got himself an army as well. Ryan then reminded me that he caught me a Marowak, which he then traded for my shiny Love Disc. We then also figured out that Spoon had a Mew item the entire time.
What did you do with the Mew map? Look in the middle chest.
Oh my god.
Spoon's had a Mew spawner this whole time.
What? Mate, I've had these from the very, very, very beginning as well.
You've had a Mew since the start.
Now, the next couple days have a little issue, since my footage got corrupted, and I did quite a lot in these days. So here are some recreations of what happened these days, and I apologize for the corrupted footage, but sadly there's nothing I can do about it. I figured out why the breeding wasn't working, since we had the wrong mod installed. We had a Forge mod, but we were on Fabric. After fixing the issue, I immediately got some Charmander eggs, and after hatching them, I evolved them into Charmeleon and into Charizard before starting to breed my Ivysaur. As that was going on, I went on to look for some Tentacool, which I caught 2 of before evolving one into a Tentacruel. I returned home and hatched a Bulbasaur eggs before evolving one of them into an Ivysaur and then straight into a Venusaur. Ryan then managed to find a Dr. Fuji diary, which will allow us to spawn Mewtwo. I then put my Mowls in the breeder as I'm trying to get a shiny. I then go on to do some archaeology to get some fossils, as I finally looked up how to do these. This is where I get pretty annoyed at myself for not writing down the coords. However, I do manage to find myself a Helix fossil and a Dome fossil. I then finish these days off by breeding a couple Machops and Spoon's Farfetch'd.
Oh yeah, and I got Mew.
Now that we're back on day 82, I can show you the normal recordings again. Although not much happened as I stayed inside breeding Ryan's Blastoise. Oh, and he gave me a Dr. Fuji diary. As I look into how to resurrect fossils, it turns out I need max revives, which I need Vivichoke flowers for. I take some Vivichoke seeds from Ryan and plant these. I then hatch a couple more eggs, but I won't be telling you about every Mowl egg that I hatch, since I'm hoping to get a shiny and telling you how many eggs it took to get it. I then go to a dark forest, where I use the diary to spawn a Mewtwo. I then catch him and evolve my Machop into a Machoke. Once I'm back home, I Mega Evolve my Mewtwo, which completes my first goal. 1 done, 4 to go. That's still quite a lot. I also hatch my first Squirtle egg. As I'm exploring, I find myself another dig site, which is actually one I need. This one has a chance to give me the old ember. I continue to explore to find another one, where I also check for an old ember. I actually managed to get one, and figure out that I already got one from the last one as well. So I have 2 now. I returned home where I grabbed another Squirtle egg, which I give to Spoon as he also needs one. I then craft myself some max revives, a fossil analyzer, and a restoration tank. Having all 3 of the resurrection components now, I can finally start to recover fossils. And I of course start off with the old amber. To make max revives, I need normal revives, and for normal revives, I need honey. So I decided to go outside and get some beehives, and bring them back to my base to make a small honey farm. And since we're in peaceful, I don't even have to worry about them stinging me. As soon as I finish with the honey farm, my Aerodactyl is ready with being resurrected. Oh, and this message down here, you might be seeing it a lot now, since Ryan is farming a shiny Darkrai. Just ignore it for now, it'll be gone before you know it. I then decide it's time for the Helix fossil to be resurrected, and I start breeding some Pokemon for Spoon. I won't be going over these, since they're not for me. If you want to see these, you could always watch Spoon's video. Ryan was finally able to catch himself a shiny Darkrai, and told me I could keep his Blastoise. This episode is done, since I won't need to evolve any of my Squirtles into Blastoise. Omanyte was then ready to be taken out of the tank, but since Dan put the fossil in for me, I couldn't take it out. I then had to trade Dan to get my Pokemon back. But then he evolved Squirtle into Wartortle, which meant that we finished all the starters. The following day was all about hunting a Jinx, and no, not the one from Arcane. It took me forever to find one, so long in fact that I started singing the Pokemon intro.
You're just a kid on the quest to be the best of the best. Sometimes you're just in for power and glory. You will do it to the test. There's only one way to tell this story. Be a hero, be a hero. All the power is at your command. It's a fierce and show you're a hero. The future of the world is in your hands.
While I was still looking for the Jinx, I got a message in my chat saying that a Stantler had killed my wolf. I don't know how this happened, but it happened. After that awful message, I was able to find myself a Jinx, which I managed to catch, of course. The next day was a lot chiller, as I just stayed home farming some Vivichoke flowers and my honey farm. I was then able to catch myself some max revives, to resurrect my final fossil Pokemon, Kabuto. Or well, the Dome Fossil. I also got an Omanyte egg, before evolving my other one into an Omastar. Once I finished all of that, it was time to look for a Windswept Gravity Hills, since this is the only place where you can find Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. I was able to find a small biome of this the next day, however I didn't know how long I'd be here, since from my experience in Pixelmon, these 2 Pokemon tend to be pretty annoying to spawn. While I'm waiting for them to spawn, I actually spotted a Riolu, which I adore. So I went on to catch it, before I see myself a Hitmonlee. And before I could even catch the Hitmonlee, there was also a Hitmonchan that spawned immediately afterwards.
Yo, that's crazy. Back to back?
Yo, what the fuck?
What the hell?
Yo, I love this game.
Now I don't know how rare these Pokemons are, but it felt pretty amazing they spawned back to back. After catching both of them, I immediately went back home to check up on Kabuto, who actually had finished resurrecting. I immediately evolved him into Kabutops and put him in the breeder. Day 90. Only 10 more days to go, and we're well on our way with our main goal. All we need now is Happiny to evolve, Kabutops to lay an egg, a Porygon to spawn, and well, the entire Dragonite line. But that's only 6 Pokemon. I then went on to get some wood, as well, we are playing Pokemon, and I kind of need a battlefield, especially for the tournament on day 100. And as I was building something, Dan was doing quite the opposite.
Ash, are you looking over in the direction I was?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
This is war. This is real as it gets. Okay.
I still don't know why he did it, but it's pretty funny. Although Ryan did return home after that, and he dropped one of the coldest lines I've ever heard.
I'm changing my goals. I no longer want God. But one of you's gonna wish there was one.
After all of that went down, I just went back to work on the battlefield. The next day was mostly spent on building the battlefield. I just took a small break to place down some PCs, since that's how Porygon spawns. I then went to the Nether to collect some glowstone, to make sure the battlefield wasn't dark at nighttime. Ryan got sick with a throat infection, which meant he could enjoy this for the last couple days. But as I was placing down the glowstone blocks, he logged on one last time to hand me his backpack with all of his loot. I then handed Spoon all of my Pokemons, since he still needed to breed a lot of them for his Pokédex. Dan decided it was time for him to look for a Dratini, since he wanted to help us out with completing the Dex challenge. I need to stay near the PCs, as I want a Porygon to spawn, so I just decided to work on some other goals of mine. Oh, and if you're wondering, yes, the Mawals are still breeding. I decided to cut down Spoon's mangrove trees and use it as a roof on my home. Oh, and Spoon, if you're watching, trees aren't supposed to fly like this, cut them down. But at least that finishes our second goal of the series. I then decided to start running circles around the PCs, although as I'm running around, I didn't even notice that a Porygon had spawned. But when I do, I run to him immediately as I attempt to catch him. And when I'm doing this, Dan finds a Dratini.
Dratini! Dratini!
Today is
Oh my
crazy. Today
God.
is crazy.
Today is
Come here.
crazy.
Come here, you little noodle boy.
Dan makes his home back immediately and gives me the Dratini. I evolve him into a Dragonair and then into a Dragonite, before immediately putting him to breed. This means we only need 4 more Pokemon before we finish the challenge, and 3 of those have something to do with eggs. So it's basically just Happiny who needs to evolve. Speaking of Happiny, why isn't she ready to evolve yet? Her friendship is where it has to be.
Wait, wait,
Huh?
what? Wait. How? Happiny
Yeah, see?
evolve.
Yeah.
Happiness.
Give it an oval stone
Oval
and then
stone.
level it up during the
Yeah,
day.
of course. You need to
Oh,
give him an
no!
oval.
Oh, turns out I wasn't really paying attention to it. I need an oval stone to evolve Happiny, and the easiest way to get that
Is by either killing Executes or Executors. So as you probably could have guessed, me and Dan both went to the jungle, where we went to kill as many of those Pokemon as we could. Since Executor only had a small 5% chance, and Execute only a tiny 2.5%. Day 95 was the exactest last day, as I'm still trying to get myself an oval stone, and it's starting to look quite bad for us. But at least the Kabuto egg had hatched. The next day brought me hope, as I finally had gotten myself an oval stone. I then showed Dan how many eggs I've gotten from trying to get the oval stone, before finally evolving Happiny into Chansey. All that's left to do for me now is to wait for Dragonite to lay some eggs, and then I'll be done with the 151 challenge. As I'm waiting, I go to Spoon to talk with him, as he needs some help with his challenge.
And then what I like to do is add an extra bit of protein.
I then decided I wanted to have the legendary items on display, and to do this, I needed some glass. I went to collect some sand to turn those into glass, and then made a ton of display cases. I then moved into my basement, where I destroyed my entire apricot farm, since this would be the perfect place to put all the legendary items. After collecting some more wood, I finished the walls of my basement and added the floor. Once that was done, I placed all the display cases down before filling them with the legendary items. And it might not be a big room, but it's very cool to see all these items together. My Dratini egg hatched and evolved it immediately into a Dragonair. I then go to store Dragonair in my PC and see something I didn't expect. Oh!
Yo!
You can't fucking kill her. Oh, it's a he! It's a he. I'm releasing it.
Wow.
I've released it.
Oh my. Nah, you just put it back in your PC.
No, I've released it, Dan. So yeah, I did that. I threw away my favorite shiny Pokemon because it wasn't a female. Looking back at it now, it's kind of stupid that I did that, but I'm still gonna count the goal completed since I did have a shiny Mawile for a bit, like a couple seconds. That's fair, right? I think it's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Day 99. We are almost done with the 100 days. And even though day 99 was here, I gotta tell you about the crazy stuff that happened. Because all that we needed was Dratini to hatch, and then we'd be done with the 151 challenge. However, Spoon had a lot more problems. He still needed to evolve his Kabuto, which hasn't even hatched yet. It was starting to look pretty bad for Spoon. Kabuto still needed 40 levels, his Dratini needed 55 levels, but luckily for Spoon, Ryan had given me his backpack and all of his diamonds. And I had an amazing idea. I went to the nearest Pokemart that sold EXP candy as fast as I could. I then spent every single of Ryan's diamonds on EXP candy. This saved Spoon from failing the 151 challenge, so Ryan, I hope Spoon has thanked you for that. Spoon then traded me back every Pokemon he borrowed to breed, and Ryan came back online since we still had to do the tournament. I had to tell Ryan in advance, as he had gotten sick. Luckily for us, he was still able to join, he just couldn't join VC since his throat hurt too much. We then used the leftover EXP candy to level up 3 Pokemon of our choice to the max level. After that, my final egg hatched, which meant that I was done with the 151 challenge, and I completed the main goal of these 100 days. And there we have it, day 100. We did it. We have managed to reach all of our goals, except for one. I still need to defeat everyone in a Pokemon battle. So let's get right to it. But first, here is my team. I have Rayquaza to start us off, followed by Shiny Gengar, and last but definitely not least, my Mega Mewtwo. My first challenger was Spoon. As I started off with my Rayquaza, he sent out his Venusaur. I managed to defeat it pretty easily, and then he sent out Charizard. Don't tell me he's just using the Gen 1 starters, is he? I kill his Mega Charizard, and then he throws out Blastoise. Guess I was right. I also managed to defeat him, which gives me the win of this fight. My next challenger was Dan, and as I started out with my Mega Mewtwo, he sent out his Kyogre. Dan managed to hit me with Sheer Cold, which is a one-hit KO move. He then swapped into Snom, which I managed to one-shot with my Gengar. He then sent out his Tapu Fini, which managed to kill my Gengar. I then managed to kill his Tapu Fini with my Rayquaza, and also defeat his Kyogre. This means I defeated Dan. Now it was time for my final challenger, Ryan. I dealt with my Rayquaza as he sent out his shiny Darkrai. I'm actually able to defeat his Darker without a problem, but then he sends out his Rayquaza. He then defeats my Rayquaza, and one-shots my Gengar, and then also one-shots my Mewtwo. And with that battle over, it marked my final goal as failed. So to answer the question I asked at the beginning, no, it turns out I could not become a Pokemon Master.